Alright everybody, the bear market is here and everything's crashing all around us, crypto and stocks, but there's a small group of people in crypto that are actually going to be doing okay, and that's because they're staking their HEX. And what HEX stakers know that a lot of the rest of crypto does not yet know about is that HEX was actually designed to overperform in both a bull and a bear market. And that's due to three major principles that the people that are already staking HEX, that are already in the know, they understand this, whereas a lot of crypto does not yet know about this. So reason number one is obviously the huge APY and yield that the stakers are currently getting. For an average size, average length stake, they're getting about 40% APY. And what that means is that you can allow the price to theoretically drop 40%, and then your yield will make that up within a year. So even if HEX gets hit super hard, which is unlikely because it's decorrelated, which I'll talk about in my next point, you still make 40% APY. So the price could drop 40%, you could make 40% yield and end up break even in the worst case scenario. Now average length stakes in HEX are about 6 years and they're getting longer every day, but even a 1-year stake is currently giving you about 13 to 14% APY in yield paid in HEX, which means you could insulate yourself from any price drops by about 13% by only staking for 1 year. But in HEX, longer pays better, which is one of the core features, and why longer timescales work out a lot better for the staking class in HEX. Now HEX is already off 60% from all-time highs, which looks like a great discount to anybody looking at this on a longer timescale of years rather than weeks and months. But the second reason that HEX can protect you from a bear market in crypto is that it's actually decorrelated from the rest of crypto. It's isolated due to its primary liquidity pair being tied to USDC in this bear market. You see, the liquidity providers in HEX utilize the concept of Hart's Law, which I talked about on a previous video, to actually protect themselves from specific situations such as we're experiencing today. Let's take NFTs for example. The primary way to pay for NFTs is in Ethereum, so in order to buy an NFT you have to pay for it with ETH. Now what if the price of ETH drops 50%, kind of like we just saw recently? Now assuming you're still able to sell that NFT for the same number of Ethereum that you paid for it, which is unlikely, you'll probably only get less Ethereum, well, the price of your NFT just got cut in half because it was primarily tied to the price of Ethereum. So this is great in a bull market when everything's going up together, and that's why HEX's primary liquidity pair in the bull market was tied to Ethereum. But the smart money in HEX that's providing liquidity realized that bearish conditions were starting to form about a year ago, and it started shifting its liquidity pair from primarily an Ethereum HEX liquidity pair to HEX USDC liquidity. The result has been a massive decorrelation in price movements from HEX versus the rest of the market. And so by being isolated and primarily paired to USD and not paired to the overall crypto markets, or the big two like Bitcoin and Ethereum, we don't have to suffer as much from crashing prices in the general macro crypto market, and we can create our own ecosystem. And speaking of our own ecosystem, that brings me to my third reason of why HEX stakers know how to protect themselves from a bear market by being in HEX, and that's basically the Pulse Chain hype. Guys, we cannot ignore the hype that Pulse Chain is literally 2 to 3 months away, maybe even less. Now what is Pulse Chain? It's a literal clone of Ethereum that's actually going to solve the gas fee problem with Ethereum because fees are so astronomically high that nobody can even onboard into Ethereum right now, even with the crashing prices. So it's a literal clone of Ethereum, but what that means is all of your ERC20 coins are being copied over to the Pulse Chain too. So whether or not you have staked HEX or liquid HEX today, you're getting a 1-for-1 copy of that HEX, liquid or staked, on the Pulse Chain from the day it forks, from the day it launches. This is a really big deal, okay? The marketing slogan, world's largest airdrop, is going to attract a lot of attention to Pulse Chain. And HEX holders are primarily the early adopters of Pulse Chain, and that's because of the overlap with Richard Hart being the founder of both. So it's almost a certainty that HEX stakers are going to be the earliest adopters of Pulse Chain because they were in the know first. And again, it is still early. So like I said, HEX is 60% off from its all-time highs. It looks like it's at a local low right now. And if we look at the history of the HEX price chart, any dips over 60% have been great buying opportunities. This has been true 7 times so far, but to me it's even more true today because the opportunity for HEX to run up in the time period between now and the Pulse Chain launch is probably the highest out of any coin. Basically, the probability of HEX's price to rise in the time period leading up to Pulse Chain's launch is highest due to all the hype around this and the fact that you're doubling your coins. Not to mention that if you buy now, you're basically getting a 60% discount at a local low. And on top of that, you have another chance to be a HEX holder from day one because you're actually getting the Pulse Chain version of HEX on day one, starting fresh again. And when HEX goes live on Pulse Chain at the moment of the fork, there is going to be a mad rush to be staking and scooping up HEX at any cheap prices that the users see because they know that the share rate goes up every day and it becomes harder and harder to lock in your percentage of the shares to ensure that you are getting the highest yield possible. So getting HEX early and staking it early is always better than later, due to the share system which I explain in other videos. And so for those reasons, HEX is an extremely attractive coin to buy in the bear market. Again, the massive APY rewards and yield can offset any potential price drop from here, even though it's already done a 60% drop. And the lower it goes, the more likely it is to bounce. Number 2, again due to Hart's Law, the fact that HEX's primary liquidity pair is in USDC makes us insulated from the rest of the bear market. And finally, number 3, the fact that Pulse Chain hype cannot be ignored and is right around the corner means people might be rushing to get HEX right now at a local low in order to get their copies on the Pulse Chain when it launches from day 1 and be among the first to make swaps or stakes early on in Pulse Chain's infancy. Not to mention, all this hype and the time leading up before the fork gives HEX a high probability compared to every other coin of actually pumping in price and not dumping along with the rest of the crypto market. So as always guys, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and consider HEX, at least as a hedge against the bear market. And if you're not staking HEX already, consider the properties I just mentioned and make your own decisions about becoming a HEX staker and potentially protecting yourself from crypto crashing all around us.